Amen. I hope you guys are ready to open God's Word this morning. I don't know about you, but as I'm sitting there and I'm singing and we're worshiping, and I don't know if we just got all of our real excited worshipers that are gone today or something, but I'm like, man, is there anyone else in here really singing these songs that we're singing and being like, we're just singing about God's not dead and Jesus rose from the dead, and I'm just kind of like, where's the energy? Sometimes I feel so bad for Tommy and the band. Not that you weren't worshiping. I'm not trying to say that, but it's like sometimes you just miss a little bit of that. It's like, where's a little bit of the woo in here? You know, this is a big deal. Yeah, that's a good thing, right? I mean, this is big. We can't. Sometimes I feel like 2020 is winning. You know, it's like when you go some places. Jen and I were gone this last week. We kind of had a staycation, so we didn't really go anywhere. We just kind of hung out. But we would go places, and she'd come home and she'd be like, man, baby, I tried to go shopping. I tried to go but she's like, people are just so depressing, man. I mean, everyone's mad at everybody. She said, I heard words I haven't heard since high school. And she's like, it was rough out there. The waters are rough out there. So I think it's more appropriate than ever that we do this series called The Letdown. I feel like we could have just called it 2020 and everybody would have got the idea, right? It's just kind of like, we don't really need to even say it. We can just say 2020. We all get it. We've been living in it for the last 10 months or so, and wow, it has been rough, y'all. It's been difficult. You know, some of you, before 2020 ever got here, life was tough. And you're like, this is not what I needed, right? I was looking for 2020 to be different, to be better. I had these hopes and these dreams that this year was going to be the good year. And it just hasn't turned out that way for a lot of different reasons. And so we are experiencing a letdown. Now, as a pastor, normally if you're going to preach a sermon like this, you'd start out and you'd try to get the congregation to, man, think about some letdowns in your life. Think about some discouraging moments. And you would do that because you would hope that the congregation would be able to connect with your message. But since we're in 2020, I don't have to spend time doing that. We're all there. We understand it. We can relate to it. It's like, go on with the next point, Pastor. I got it. I know I can experience letdowns. I've been there. I'm in it. We're in it right now. It just seems overwhelming at times, and we don't know really what to do. And so I think some of us are there now. I think some of us have been there before. I think 2020 just made things even worse for others. Some of us have had it a whole lot worse than others, right? You've gone through some, massive things, not just having to deal with a pandemic. And so it becomes this point where, and we don't like to admit this, especially if you're a Christ follower. If you're not a Christ follower, it's not hard to admit this, but if you're a Christ follower, it's hard to admit that many times we get so down, we get so let down, we get so frustrated with the world that we even wonder and think and maybe even sometimes say out loud, where's God? Where's God right now? Where is He in the midst of all of this craziness that is going on? And I just want you to know this. If you have ever felt that, ever thought that, ever been so overwhelmed by all of this, I just want you to know that you're not alone. Okay? I also want you to know that you're not some horrible sinner because you felt that way or that you feel that way now. I've talked with people through the years that sometimes are like, I'm so ashamed to even say this, but this is how I feel. I just want you to know it doesn't make you this awful, terrible person because you're being honest and you're saying, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm let down. This isn't what I thought it was going to be like. I hate this. I don't want to be in this anymore. Well, all throughout history, people have felt this way. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about the Bible is because we can go in here, we can go to Scripture, and we can read from people, exact words from people from thousands of years ago and go, wait a minute, though our cultures are way different today than they were then, emotionally, we feel the same way. We can connect with what they're saying, how they are feeling. You can literally read the raw emotions of these people and go, man, that's not any different than the way I feel right now. Still to this day. And what's great about it is then we can learn. They've been through it. We can learn how they dealt with it. Sometimes they dealt with it in really great ways, and other times they dealt with it in very poor ways. And so we read this, and we take from it, hopefully we take the wisdom from it, and we say, well, what can I do with it? Because I'm going through it. I'm dealing with it. I'm feeling extremely let down. And so when we read the Scripture, when we hear from these people. Understand, these are real people with real problems. So it's good that we can relate to them. It's not some made-up story. It's not a Disney thing. It's not like, oh, that's a neat story. That's a neat thing. This is real. Real people, real problems, and so we can relate to them. And I want you to know that God intended it to be that way. God intended it for this to happen, for us to have this word. Now, we don't always treat it that way, right? We treat it pretty flippantly. We don't really get too excited about the Word of God very much unless someone's preaching about it, like get into your Word, or the government or somebody says you can't have it or you can't read it. Then we get all crazy and then we want to read it because someone told us we can't read it, right? We're really weird that way. It's like everyone's upset about prayer, right? You're taking prayer out of school, but then no one said you couldn't pray in your house, but you never pray there either. So I don't know why it's such a big deal they took it out of school. You weren't praying there to begin with until they told you couldn't, and then you wanted to. This is just the way a lot of us work. We get so fired up about something once someone says you can't do it, but you have this, even though there's countries that don't, or can't have it, or not supposed to have it, would die if they did find out you had it. We have it. It's available. It's here for us, and God intended that to be the purpose so we could read this. That's why God doesn't just put, I love this, He doesn't just put the good, happy, fluffy, good stuff in here, right? Of, oh, everything's wonderful and I'm good and everything's going to be glorious and everything's great and happy-go-lucky. You know, now, you listen to some preachers and you think that's all that was in here. But that's not all that's in here. God puts the ugly stuff in here. God puts people's sin in here. God puts people's real emotions in here. And the reason He does this is that He knew we would have days and seasons, even years, of letdowns. And we were going to need some help. We were going to need somewhere to turn to be able to draw some strength and wisdom from someplace, somewhere. And He never promised us that we wouldn't have these issues, these seasons, these problems. Matter of fact, it was the opposite. When you read God's Word, He tells us, in this world you will have trouble. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you about that part. No, we knew this was going to happen. He told us this was going to happen. But instead of being silent, this is what I love about our God. He gave us His Word to read and to hear from Him. He sent Jesus, His Son, so that we could learn from Him. And then He's given us the ability to have the Holy Spirit inside us when we place our hope and trust in Jesus. This is how good our God is. This is what we were singing about this morning. So if were sleeping a little bit through the worship service, maybe you need to be reminded of that. You know, going through the book of Psalms, which is what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks as we dig into this whole letdown series, trying to pull from this and give us some hope and help during our letdowns and struggles and disappointments in this life. You know, when you read through the Psalms, which I've been doing a lot of preparing for these messages, is then you know, they were songs. A lot of them were songs that people were writing. And so when you hear or you sing worship songs like we just did, you realize some of the reason we're singing those things, one is obviously to praise God, give Him what He's due, He's worthy of it. But it's also for us to continue to tell our hearts and our minds and our spirits who He is. It's reminding us, remember who He is, because this world's going to make you think that it's not true. So let me encourage you this morning not to give up, because I want to tell you there is help now and there is help on the way. And the world's not going to tell you that. But if we're honest, sometimes I will say this, sometimes if we're going through it, it doesn't feel like it. This is just speaking real, right? Even if we're a Christ follower, when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it just doesn't feel like God is there. And all these things that we've been singing about, it's just hard sometimes to get our minds and our heart trapped around them. So to help us deal with these emotions of disappointment, hopefully again to help us heal a little bit, allow us to pick our heads up if they've kind of been sagging lately, even through these hard times, we're going to spend these 4 weeks. We're going to dive into the book of Psalms. We're going to look at what we can do to overcome the letdowns in life. Now, the book of Psalms is just an incredible, valuable resource because it gives us such a great guide to how to approach God. I don't think a lot of people realize how they can approach God. Sometimes our view of God is very skewed, depending on how you grew up, what denomination you grew up in, what kind of a family you grew up in. Maybe you didn't even have church a part of your life when you grew up. And so depending on how all that works, even how your earthly father was or is, it can mess with how we approach God and how we treat God and how we would treat this relationship with him. But I want you to know this, by the way, we're going to be in Psalm 42, so you can go ahead and get there if you want to. If you have your Bibles, your iPhones, iPads, Androids, whatever it is you do to get there, Psalm 42 is where we're going to be, and we're going to see this morning. We're going to see how he approaches God, which is so important. Matter of fact, this particular psalm, we're going to see two really important things. The first one we're going to see is that we can come to God with all of our emotions. We can come to God with all of our emotions. That is so freeing. We can be and we should be honest with God about how we feel. I don't know if this has ever been told to you before. You've thought about this. Why wouldn't you? He already knows what you're thinking, right? So for you, like, I don't want to really say that to God. Well, he knows what you just didn't already want to say that to him about, right? So go ahead and be honest with God. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what's on your heart, what's on your mind. He understands. He gets it. He knows when we are struggling with something. And so we need to make sure that we tell him that. We come to him with all of our emotions. We're going to see it in the text this morning that we're about to read. The second really important thing that this passage is going to show us is that hope is the key to surviving our disappointments. Hope is the key to surviving our disappointments. And that is why it's so important that we pay attention to what and whom we are placing our hope in. If hope has that much power, and it does, and I think we would probably all agree with that, extreme power, that's why who you put and what you put your hope in is so, so important. Because being a Christian doesn't exempt you from hard times. Ask any Christian that's been a Christian for any amount of time, and they will tell you it doesn't exempt you from hard times. And when those hard times come, if our hope is in anything but Jesus, those hard times will overwhelm us and possibly even destroy us. This is how important it is that we make sure our hope is in the right place. Hard circumstances, financial struggles, job loss, health issues, the exhaustion of caring for little children or for caring for a parent who is ill. Those things are, and a whole lot more other things, can become a point of discouragement, even for a Christ follower. This stuff can be very overwhelming. And even though our faith is in God, there are still times when we feel defeated. Moments when we feel let down because of how our lives have turned out. It wasn't exactly the way we planned it. This isn't what we really thought our future was going to look like. And so we find ourselves, like the psalmist says in this passage that we're about to read, longing for something more. It's, God, there's got to be more to life than this. And truthfully, that can be the most dangerous place for us to be. And other times, it can be the best place for us to be. So let's begin reading this passage together. And we're going to spend the rest of our time this morning just unpacking this. Literally a couple verses, maybe a few verses at a time. So Psalm 42, verse 1 and 2. This first part is probably something you've heard before. Or maybe you sang the song as a kid. It'll be going through your head, I know. It says, "As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God?" What we're going to find out as we read through this psalm this morning is this author is very discouraged. This author has gone through a very, very, very difficult time, and his depression has led him to long for and to cry out for a closer relationship with God. Matter of fact, he compares himself to this tired, severely dehydrated deer who is longing for this cool, refreshing water. Now, we don't know exactly what his circumstances were and what was troubling him, but what we do know is he wanted and he needed a closer relationship with God. I think this desire to want to draw close to God is sometimes the best thing that comes out of difficult times. Because when everything's going great, and I think if you've lived life for a while, I think you would admit this. When everything's going great, it's really easy to kind of forget about God. We kind of like, I got this. I'm good. This is easy, When things are going good, when there's nothing rough happen and we're kind of like, oh yeah, life's good. But it's when those difficult moments come that all of a sudden we start realizing, wait a minute, I need to turn to God. I need help. I need to lean on Him more. So I think this desire to want to draw close to God is sometimes the best thing that comes out of these difficult times. Times of letdowns, times of disappointments and uncertainty are many times the things that turn us toward, or at least remind us of, our need for Him. And I think that 2020 may be something that we'll look back on one day in many ways as a blessing. It's actually done a few really good things. It's made us realize how fragile our country and our world really are. I think some of us put a whole lot of faith and comfort into the country and the world, and things were going pretty great there, especially economy-wise, before all this pandemic. And I think all of a sudden we realize just how fragile it all really is. I think it's made us realize how little control we really have in this life. Suddenly we realize we don't have the freedoms that we used to have, and we don't really have control over everything like maybe we thought we did. It's made us, at least I hope it's made us appreciate church more. I don't know about you, but there were some months there where I was starving to be back with you guys, to be in this place, to lift my voice with yours. And man, it made me appreciate church more. It made us slow down, whether we wanted to or not. It did. It made us slow down. And I know for me, it's made me the most thankful that I've ever been to serve and believe in a God who is unwavering and never shaken and is the same yesterday and today and forever. I don't know about you guys, but I have needed that anchor throughout this storm. He's the only thing that stayed consistent through all of it. And it's the only thing I can look to and know, okay, God, while everything else seems like it's out of order and nuts, and I've never seen this before, this is craziness, you're still the same. Your plan hasn't changed. It's still, when I read the end of this book, it's still going to end just the same. I know where I'm going when it's over. I could hold on to that anchor in the middle of these times. I have appreciated that more than ever before. And I believe it's opened many people's eyes to their need for God. Because difficult times, letdowns have a way of making us rethink and see things in ways that we never would if life never let us down. And again, I believe it's why God sometimes allows disappointment and hard times to come into our lives, because it drives us to a closer relationship to Him, to make us desire Him like water when we are so, so thirsty. And He wants us to crave Him more than anything else in life. God wants us to crave Him. God wants us to desire Him. And that's the point this psalmist is starting out with, this longing to get close to God. So I want to continue to read this passage and just see why this writer is desiring God with such passion. This is Psalm 42, verse 3. He says, my tears have been my food day and night. Wow, people say to me all day long, where is your God? Have you ever cried so much that you literally tasted your tears? I've been there. It's only been a couple times in my life, but literally where crying so hard that tears are running into my mouth. Like I could taste my tears. That's what I picture when I read this. That he's saying, man, my tears have been my food day and night. I am overwhelmed. I'm crying. Just such a picture of this feeling of sadness that he's describing here. And then to make it worse, while he's in obviously this distraught moment of his life, things are not going well. He's so upset. He has people, the enemy, who is saying and taunting and asking him, where's your God? Where's your God in all of this? Which doesn't make it any better, right? Which just makes it even worse. And I want you to know, our enemy Satan will ask us this in dark seasons too. This is prime opportunity for him. He is a jerk and he wants to destroy our spirit and our hope. But that's why when we read Scripture, it tells us we have to be sober-minded. We have to be awake. We have to be alert to these things. We have to understand and see that this is an attack. It is a temptation to believe that God has abandoned us. That's what Satan wants us to think. He wants us to question God's faithfulness and His love for us. It's the same thing, church, that he did in the garden at the very beginning with Adam and Eve. He wanted them to question God. Question what's going on. Are you sure? Don't you think that maybe it's this? Where is he? And nothing has changed about him. So when we're in these moments of letdowns, there's three things that we got to do that we're going to learn from this and from the psalmist. And the first one is this. We declare to ourselves and those who are against us that our hope is still in God and in his love. We declare to ourselves, and again, we were just doing this. This is part of what worship is. Declaring to ourselves and to those who are against us that our hope is still in God and in his love. Listen to these next verses. This is verses 4-7. It says, "These things I remember as I pour out my soul, how I used to go to the house of God under the protection of the Mighty One, with shouts of joy and praise among the festive throng. Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God. My soul is downcast within me, therefore I will remember you. From the land of the Jordan, the heights of Hermon, from Mount Mizar, deep calls to deep in the roar of your waterfalls. All your waves and breakers have swept over me." The psalmist is talking to himself here. He's reminding himself to put his hope and trust in God, to praise him. Sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of truth. This is why it's so important for us to be in our word. This is why it's so important to come to church and to be in a small group and be in places where we can be fed the truth. We have to remember we are being lied to daily by this world and by the one who can do nothing but lie. So you're going to be fed lies. Hopefully you understand that. And you realize that not everything you're going to hear every single day is going to be truth. And what you're going to read in the news and what you're going to hear from other people is not truth. The only place you can go and know that it's 100% truth is God's word. You can't even trust preachers. I know I'm one of them, but you can't. Don't trust somebody just because they say, "Oh, well, the Bible says." No, you look it up. If it's in here, you can trust it. This is truth. That's why we got to have our mind and our hearts set on the truth. Because we're going to hear a lot of other things that are not truth. And we have to remember that, again, these lies are coming very strategically from our enemy. And he wants us to question. He wants us to wonder, is God real? Where is he? Then the second thing the psalmist does that we must do as well is remember what God has done. He says, "I will remember you." He is fighting against this temptation that Satan has put before him to question the existence and the goodness of God. And the psalmist says, "I'm going to remember who you really are." And many scholars think that he lists out these places that he mentions here, either as places that he's been and he knows that he's remembering when God showed up there, or it is places that Israel had been and he knows that God showed up there, and he's remembering. Either way, he's stopping and he's remembering things that God has done. He's looking at God's track record. Don't we do this with one another sometimes when someone's questioning you and they feel like you've done something and many times the only thing we can go to is our character? And what do we say? We say, have I ever let you down before? Have I ever lied to you before? And if the answer to that is, well, yeah, right? Then that person kind of goes, okay, now I guess I understand why you don't really believe me, right? And this is the boy that cried wolf, right? Because when someone does that so often, then you have a hard time trusting them. But with God, he's never broken one promise. He's even gone beyond what we've ever asked him to do. As Ryan was telling us earlier, he loved us when we hated him. He is so good, and he's been good to us. He could have left us here to just deal with the sin that we brought into this world, but instead, he provided a way for us to have a way out, a way to have our sins forgiven. He has always been there for us, and so we have to remember these things. And many of you can point to moments in your life where things you can't explain except for it was God. And what the psalmist is doing and what I'm encouraging you to do is to remember what God has done. He's remembering and reflecting on the goodness of God to remind himself who God really is, what God is really like, and he's choosing to not listen to the lying voices of the enemy. Church, when life is hitting us hard and we are feeling down or alone or our expectations haven't been met, the devil sees this as this prime opportunity to come in and begin taunting us with things like, where's your God? Where's your God? And here's the thing. If our relationship with God consists of just a couple hours on Sunday, Satan is going to have a field day with us. See, this is what's happening. This is why sometimes we're so easily swayed away. This is why all of a sudden we're just kind of like we give up, or we get knocked down so easily by the things of the world. And it's not that those things aren't difficult, but when there's really no relationship with God, when there's no closeness there, when there's nothing, it's just not very deep. It's not going to take a whole lot for us to be blown away by the smallest thing, let alone a big thing that comes along in our life. This is why it's so important that we get our roots in the Word of God. Not only that, but if you're not in a small group, this is another reason why they're so important. Because here's what I'm going to tell you, absolute honest truth. There's going to be days, I don't care how strong of a Christian you are, there's going to be days that you can't do it on your own. You're going to need other brothers and sisters to come along and speak truth to you. You're going to need that. Because number one, you're going to need people to hold you accountable because you're not perfect and I'm not perfect and we're going to make stupid choices and we're going to need brothers and sisters to say, that's not a good idea. What you're doing is not good. And we're going to need that correction. But we're also going to just need brothers and sisters with us because there's going to be days where we're tasting our tears. There's going to be days when we are overwhelmed and we don't feel like we can stand. And you're going to need some people that you can open up and confess to and just rely on. Or sometimes not even have to say anything, but just to have them come around you and put their arm around you and say, I got you. I will walk through this with you. You are not alone. Reminding us of who God is. Reminding us of the goodness of God. You need that. I need that. And if you're not wrapped around people like that, you're going to be trying to do this life all by yourself. I'm telling you, the chances of you making it out unscathed are very, very slim. And as a matter of fact, the scary part is, because this is so serious and this is such real life, many times we get swayed away from church completely, sometimes God completely, and we find ourselves out there alone, feeling abandoned, not knowing what to do. That's why these things are in place. That's why we have these things here. That's why the church is so important. We need these things. And you can just see and feel the agony of the psalmist here. He's in a dark place. He understands he's in a battle for his soul. And these moments, these seasons of life they can consume us if we don't handle them in a godly way. So let's read the rest of this passage. This is 8 through 11. It says, by day the Lord directs his love. At night his song is with me. A prayer to the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? My bones suffer mortal agony as my foes taunt me, saying to me all day long, where is your God? Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God. Third thing we got to do in these moments, and what this psalmist does, is we got to call out to God with raw honesty for help. Prayer and honesty are powerful things, and not just because prayers can be answered. Yes, that's a beautiful thing, but because it's therapeutic to express our true feelings to God, to get feelings and emotions off of our chest and into the hands of the one who cares and loves us more than anyone else ever could or will, and has the power to change things in our life and to give us a peace that his word says passes all understanding. God can do that. See, hopelessness is deadly, but the presence of hope can be a life vest that keeps us afloat in a time of difficulty. The psalmist seemed to understand that even though circumstances are bleak, God is still faithful. The psalmist seemed to understand that God has a plan and God is still in control, and it's in his timing, he will rescue us. See, he didn't give up on those things. He didn't lie and say that, oh, I'm doing fine. Right? We do that. How are you? Fine. No, you're not. How's everything going? Even to sometimes our closest friends, even in our small groups sometimes. I'm good. I'm fine. No, you're a liar. You're tasting your tears when you're not around us, but you don't want to admit that because you're putting on this facade. You need help. You need someone to come along you and say, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to question and wonder and go through seasons like this and then to do these things we've just talked about. You know, when I think about this, it reminds me of a life jacket or a life vest or a life raft or a life preserver, these types of things. And I kind of put this on. I just want you to know, I think this is probably a small. It's a small, okay? It's like fat guy and anyway, this is, so these things, we put these things on. If you know what I was talking about there, shame on you. Anyway, when you put these things on, a lot of times, you know, we put them on only because it's a law. Some of us are like, oh my gosh, I can swim. I'm so amazing. You know, I'm basically Michael Phelps. I don't need this thing, right? I get it. But then we do it because we don't want to get a ticket more than anything. But when it comes to like little children or things like that, man, they got these things on. They got the puffy things on their arms. They got things on their legs. I mean, they walk like they can't even get in the water, right? Like, especially if it's like your first child. You know, by the third one, you're just kind of like, let him swim. He's fine. But the first one is like all puffed up. And we put these things on because what we understand about these things, and we also put these things on if maybe we're in a place that's a little crazier than what we're used to. We know it has potential to be dangerous. And the reason that they want us to wear these things is because lots of bad things can happen when you're out on water or you're near water. And so when the whole point of these things is when we go overboard or something bad happens, there's an accident and you get thrown in the water, or for some reason whatever you're in begins to sink, you won't. This is meant for you to continue to be able to float. This is meant for you to be able to relax and rely on this life vest to save your life. This is meant for you to put this on and be able to be in the deepest of waters and know, though I might be a little nervous right now because my surroundings are kind of crazy and the waves are smacking me in the face, I know that I'm not going to sink because I've got this. I've got this life vest on. And what we do is we then wait. And we wait for help. We call out for help. But what I don't do when I put this on, and when I find myself in the water, and I didn't intend on being in the water, I don't go, man, I hope this thing works. Man, I hope this thing does what it's supposed. I know it's going to work. Why do I know it's going to work? Because I've worn one of these 1,000,000 times, and I've fallen off of jet skis, and I've fallen out of boats, and I've had these things on, and I've been in canoes that have tipped over, and so I know that they work. And so I'm not fearful that I'm going to drown. I may be nervous again because of whatever my surroundings may be, but I know that if I stay put and I just kind of maybe call out for help if I need to, I'm going to be okay. I'm eventually going to get back to safety more than likely because I'm relying on this life vest. Now, if you've been around people who have not been around water very long and they have one of these on, a lot of times what they'll do is if they've got one of these on, and you've seen this, if you've been around people who are not used to it, and even though they have one of these on, and they fall in the water, what do? They freak out, and they start going, you know, my mom did, I got to tell you that, my mom did this one time. She was on the jet ski with me, right? We hadn't even taken off. We're literally in maybe 3 foot of water, and she gets... I know she's watching right now. First of all, I know my dad's crying already laughing because of this story. Anyway, so my mom gets on the jet ski with me. She's got her life jacket on, and she gets behind me. And I'm like, okay, Mom, you ready? And jet skis can be a little wobbly and stuff, and so she kind of loses her balance, and she falls in the water. My mom suddenly tries to become this Olympic swimmer with her life vest on in the water, and she's just, I mean, I'm not even making this up. When my mom and I get here in a couple of months, you can ask my dad to describe this to you. I'm not lying. My mom she's getting it. I mean, she's got the form going in her life. And my dad and I are looking at her, and we go, Mom, just stand up. And so she's like, and then she stands up, and she's like, you know, it's kind of one of those moments, and I mean, we can't even breathe. My dad and I are laughing so hard because we realize, first of all, what are you thinking? What are you doing? But what she did was she went into her mode of, I got to swim, I got to save myself. She didn't realize that two different things. One, you can stand where you're at right now. And number two, even if you couldn't reach the bottom, you have a life vest on. You're going to be okay. Settle down. Let the life vest do its thing, or just stand up. See, this is where so many of us are in life, church. We get into rough waters. We get into these difficult times. But I'm here to tell you, if you've placed your hope and your trust and your faith in Jesus Christ, settle down. It's going to be okay. You may have to wait a little bit. You may have to bob around in 2020 for a little while. But don't worry, because your hope and your faith and your trust that you've placed all that in, it's not going to let you sink no matter how deep it gets. No matter what happens, He's got you. And we need to remember that. Instead of looking so stupid, like we're going crazy, like I've got to save myself. No, you don't. Just stand up. Just stand up, or just wait. And here's the thing. While you're waiting, don't forget these things, okay? While you're waiting, this is so important, these things I just told you, right? While we're waiting, declare to ourselves and those who are against us that our hope is still in God and His love. We do that while we're waiting. Remember what God has done. You do that while you're waiting. And then third, call out to God with raw honesty for help. That's what we do while we're waiting. But we don't panic and we don't freak out because we understand who's got us. We place our hope, no matter how big the letdown is, no matter how bad life gets, we place our hope in the only one who can save us. We place our hope in God, not because we know exactly how or when He's going to deliver us, but because we know He knows, and He is capable, and He's in control, and He's not scared or rattled by anything, and He has promised us, and He will not leave us as orphans. His word tells us this: I will not leave you as orphans, but I will come to you. That's a promise of our God. Church, I'm here to tell you this morning, and maybe this is all the part you needed to hear. You can be saved from the drowning waters of this life today. You really can. And I would love to introduce you to someone who will never let you down, who will always keep His promises, someone who loves you more than you could ever imagine, someone who can give you a life that one day will have no trouble, no sorrow, no sickness, no letdowns, no pandemic. It's called heaven. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful place. And the person that can get you there, His name is Jesus. And He created you, and He loves you, and He has a plan for you, and He has called you to come and follow Him, to place all of your hope in Him alone. That's what He's asked us to do. And if we'll do that, church, I promise you, people will look at you and go, how are you not rattled by all this? You've lost your job. Because I don't put my hope and my faith and my trust in my job. But what about this and this? Well, yeah, I don't like that. And yes, it upsets me. And yes, it's inside, it's hard. But here's the deal. I know ultimately I'm going to be okay. I can have peace when it just doesn't make sense to have peace. Church, that's who we serve. That's what we're supposed to do. So when the letdowns come, it's not that they're not going to bother us. Not that we're not going to taste our tears, because we will. But it does mean that we can recover. And it does mean that we can have moments like this where we go to His Word, and after we read His Word, we go, I got my life jacket on, God, I'm okay. I know You got me. And I'm going to place my hope and my trust in You. I'm not going to listen to the lies of Satan. So I'm going to pray, and then if you have not done that, if you've not placed your hope and trust in Jesus, I'm going to tell you how you can do that here in just a second. But let's pray first. God, when I think about Your Word, and I think about the power, I think about how much hope and how much help that has come to me, I know personally in my life from it, I'm just so grateful for it. I'm so thankful, God, that I live in a country where I can still freely open it and read through it and draw hope and draw comfort and draw just wisdom and knowing who you are, and I can have relief. Because God, as you know, this world's nuts right now. It's crazier than it's ever been, I know, in my lifetime. And there's a lot of things that probably should cause us to panic and think of, sad things and overwhelming things, and cause us to hang our heads and be depressed and upset and even question where you are. But God, I just pray you would keep reminding us to go to your word and realize this isn't the first time that the world has had an issue. We're not the first person that's ever questioned where you are. We're not the first person that's ever cried tears so hard that we're tasting them. God, we know others have been there, and we've seen what they've done to deal with it. And I pray, God, you would help us to deal with it. And Lord, I do pray that you would give us relief, that you would remind us to remember who you are, to remember what you've done, to remember the whole story, not just this one particular chapter or this one particular page that we're on within this chapter of life, but to understand the goodness of the end, to understand that you conquered the grave, and that same power, God, that same power you still have today, and Lord, you place inside us with the Holy Spirit, and we can get through this. Together we can get through this, Lord. And I just pray, God, if there's someone here today that doesn't know you, that has not placed their hope and their trust in you, Lord, that you would just call them right now. Whether they're here in this auditorium, in this worship center, God, or if they're home watching online, God, that you would just call them, because we know that you can only you can do that. I just ask for you to do that now. In Jesus' name, amen.